we all have 15 to 17,000 breaths a day. We all have the same sort of opportunities. Although we come from different backgrounds, we have different DNA, we have different abilities, but we all have the ability to shape and design our future.
Hello and welcome to the JSE Investor Avenue podcast. My name is Fifi Peters. I am happy to be here with you, standing in for my dear sister Gugulethu Mpumi, who is away. I can tell you that this podcast, though, is one of many firsts, specifically this episode. It is the first time that the podcast zones in on the avenue of women leadership in August, a month that is celebrated as a Women's Month here in South Africa. And it's also the very first time that the podcast is joined by the CEO of the JSE herself, Miss Leila Fourie. Leila, welcome.
Thank you.
And of course, you have brought some friends with you who are de facto residents and perhaps even family members of the JSE as leaders of companies that are listed right here on the stock exchange, beginning with the lovely Miss Phuthi Mahanyele-Dabengwa, who is the CEO of Naspers South Africa, part of the Naspers process group, which I believe has a market value of around 2-3 trillion. That's it. It's a big one. It's a big one. Welcome, Phuthi.
Thank you.
And we also have the equally as lovely Miss Mpumi, Madisa, who also represents quite a heavyweight on the JSE in the form of the Bidvest Group as its CEO. About 82 billion rand market cap. It's heavy. It's heavy. Ladies, welcome. And of course, happy Women's Month to all of you.
Thank you.
We are here, thank you. We are here to discuss a book, the latest book to drop in the leadership circles here in South Africa, a book that you are all featured in. And it's called Architects of Influence, Women in Leadership. And it is a book that has been supported quite heavily by the JSE. And Leila, perhaps maybe you can begin with helping us understand how it came to be and exactly why it is that the JSE threw its weight of support behind it.
So Fifi Rotok has written a number of books about leaders in South Africa, one on CFOs, one on general leaders. And in fact, my colleagues have been represented in some of those. And when he sort of approached us with this idea on focusing on women, I felt that it was really important to create an opportunity for younger people and the younger generation really to understand the art of the possible in leadership, and for these icons in the leadership circle. And the fact that they are women is aside the point. They are icons regardless of their gender. And they have many stories to tell and so much wisdom. And so I really think that Casey has done an excellent job in compiling a repository that will last the stage of time, and that really just provides insights into the DNA and the spiritual drive that has had such a big mark on our South African and, in many instances, global economy.
Absolutely. And I like what you say in terms of your reference of the art of the possible. And your chapter specifically is about lifting as she climbs. And it does reflect on the many suits that you do enjoy to wear. And many of us know you in your corporate attire. You look absolutely fabulous in it. But obviously, this is not the attire that you take when you're out in the Antarctica or you're summiting Kilimanjaro. So talk to how did that come to be? And I suppose maybe more importantly, what lessons you do take from the mountain when you bring it into managing the market's boardroom, as it were.
Yeah, Fifi, I think in many instances, both through growing up and through alternative outlets, we learn lessons. And I have this view of kairos moments, which is in Greek, moments that last forever or moments that matter. Yes. And I find that I've learned so much from being on the mountains, and that has provided repackaged knowledge for my leadership sort of armory in the world. I've learned about risk management and the fact that mostly people like to stay within a safe zone, and in so doing they could really confine the opportunities and in fact create obsolescence in companies, obsolescence in themselves. And I think it's only when you've really pushed your boundaries and understood very systematically the dynamics around risk that you truly start to create and make a contribution. I've also learned from those experiences the importance of bringing others with you. It's rare and often dangerous when people summit completely on their own. And I think what I've learned so valuably and so importantly is that your experiences, be they on your own mountain or on a mountain that is metaphoric, it's important to lift people as you climb and to support people along the way. And I've learned such invaluable lessons from mentors and people who are much greater than me in the climbing sphere. And so I always value when I hire people repackaged knowledge. It may come from a personal musical background, it may come from reading, it may come from deep family stories, but we come to the workplace as whole people, and what we bring is so much bigger than what our degrees say or what our previous linear experience suggests. So for me, it's about the non-linear and repackaged knowledge that we come to the workplace as and bringing whole people.
Sure. The ladies, Leila's talking about the importance of bringing others with her. I mean, how do you feel about a date with her, Phuthi? Mpumi in Antarctica?
I'll pass.
I'll do a date with Leila anytime. It's just not in Antarctica.
Do you know what? I concur. Leila, I absolutely am inspired by you, but miss me too. Miss me.
In the boardroom.
Why stay at home base? Why stay at home base and make coffee and I'll wait?
Absolutely. And if you need something stronger, I'll be there with the red wine. Yeah. But Phuthi, pivoting to you, it was interesting to also learn in your chapter on lessons on life, loss, and leadership about the fact that, you loved ballet. And, when I read that line, I could see you as a ballerina. I could see you in that life, and probably absolutely successful at that as well. But obviously in this life, fortune and destiny had a different plan for you. And unfortunately, the ballet shoes had to be put aside because your father insisted on economics. Economics that led you to opportunities over in New York. Although I see your upbringing is, it's full of a few stops. But KZN girl, Lesotho is in there, somewhere in the mix, a Soweto girl, New York, back to Johannesburg. It's a whole lot of lights. Yeah. So maybe just talk to us about that journey that now has you as one of the executives of, first of all, the largest internet company on the African continent and by far one of the largest in the world. Unpack it for us.
Okay. So, Fifi, it will be interesting to note that ballet is back in my life.
Oh, wow. We're clapping for her.
So when I moved to Cape Town, I met a new friend and she told me that she was doing ballet lessons. And I thought, well, this is amazing. And I started going with her. And I've now met another friend. And so we're going to be trying another studio. But I mean, the thing that I love about ballet is that, and I think it's quite similar to what you were talking about as well, Leila. With ballet, what I love is the fact that whilst you are working and perfecting your art, your capability, you're also doing it within a team. And together you can develop something, whether, whatever dance it is that you do together. And I think just, the music that you hear while doing, there's something that, however difficult and, strenuous it can be, there's something quite melodic and very restful that I find about it psychologically. So I've enjoyed ballet and I'm very happy that I'm able to welcome it back. The other thing I'm trying to bring back is the piano.
Okay.
So
okay. You and Leila can play together.
I'll join you on that.
So I bought the piano and I'm taking lessons at home, but I now, I now need to like put the time into it as well. But those have always been the two favorites. And I think just to come back to your question, it has been a bit of a whirlwind. And, I'm very grateful that I think when I look at my story, it's very much rooted in my relationship with my dad and my mom. My mother, taught us to be ladies and to, and unfortunately she passed away while still young at 42. But I'm thankful that I had a very present father. And my dad really, really crafted our careers. And so he told me that I was going to be in the world of commerce, and so I should study this and study that, etc. And I'm very grateful when I look back that I listened to him. And it's been an amazing career. I've been hugely thankful. I've worked with amazing, phenomenal people. And the thing that I've learned about it is just the importance of creating relationships wherever you go. And to the extent that it's possible to create lifelong relationships. Because at the end of the day, whether you're in a boardroom or whatever office you are in, you're with people. And these people have lives outside of those rooms that you're in with them. And so it really has been an incredible journey to be able to take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that you speak about the ballet and the lessons and the strength that you get from that, because it's a different kind of strength, right? So anyone who has tried ballet will know that it's your own body weight, and that's why the ballerinas, both the men and the women, are so sculpted. As you try to lift your own body weight, you can tell us a lot about lifting your own body weight. It is hard, but it's a different kind of strength and a different kind of power. Weaving it in to what we have been talking about, and influences, and specifically male influences. You are also an executive and a leader who has had the backing of a man betting on you, supporting you through your climb up. And I mean, one can also say, but it has to be men right now, and perhaps even back then, because they are the majority in the boardroom. But I remember when your SEN statement came out regarding your appointment and who you'd be whose shoes you'd be stepping in, or perhaps walking alongside Mr. Brian Joffe, respected industrialist in South Africa, and respected businessman, worldwide. And I remember, your chapter is titled The First Female CEO of Bidvest. And I think that you're also more than that, because at the time you were the first and the youngest executive to lead a JSE top 40 company. You were 39. You were my age. And you were being announced to step into this giant of a business person in the form of Brian Joffe. So take us through that moment and any kinds of feelings that you felt.
Yes, it was a journey. So for me, I think from an external perspective, it looked like a moment, but the plan was 7 years in the making. So I had 7 years before where Brian had called me into his office and he'd said, I think we can do this. And he said, I think you can take over. And I think over the next couple of years, we should focus on X, Y, and Z. And then let's see where it goes. So for 7 years before that, I had just put my head down and was on a learning journey. And I was blessed and fortunate to learn from the best, right? I call Brian Jackson the Michael Jackson. Right? So very blessed to learn from somebody like that and just to absorb. And so when the announcement was made, I was ready.
Yeah.
I'd had the time to process. I had the time to step up, and I'd had the time to do a lot of things below the radar. And so I was ready. I knew what I needed to do. I was ready even from a team perspective. I'd had the conversations with the people who were my colleagues at the time that I'd be leading. I'd had time to think about what kind of leader I wanted to be, and I had made the decision that I wanted to lead differently, and that I would lean in to leading as a woman and as a young woman and as a mother. And I would bring all of that and all of me into the boardroom. I was clear around some of the culture shifts that we needed to make. I was clear around bringing other women up. I was clear about the fact that the office and the culture needed to change, right? It's one thing just to have a strategy where you're promoting more women, but you have to create an environment where we stay and where we thrive. So I was clear around the stuff that I needed to do. So it was an exciting time, but I was ready. The only thing that I wasn't ready for was COVID.
I was going to say, because you're ready, and then boom.
And then boom!
Your appointment aligns with COVID and crisis management.
And then I'm like, what? Yeah. Right? So that was the only thing that I wasn't ready for, but the whole world wasn't ready for it, right? And so all of us, and how I describe that COVID world time is it felt like we were all building an airplane in the air. Like it's in the air and we're finding pieces to pull it together and to kind of stay afloat. And so that's what it felt like. And as difficult a time as it was, the one thing that we did that I know in the organization was the right thing. We just put our people first. And when we did that, we made a people decision, and every decision was a people decision. And it was the right thing to do. It wasn't easy because in the corporate space, we're so focused on income statement, balance sheet, liquidity, and all of those things. And all that is important. So not to say it's not important, because if you don't have your balance sheet structure appropriate, you could lose the entire business. So whilst that is important, one of the things that I think we elevated at the time was that our most important asset, though, are the people. And so whatever decisions we make, we must be clear that once COVID is gone, your people must still want to be here. And they will remember how you treated them during the crisis. And so that actually underpinned every decision that we made.
Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, here we are, right? With more crises, actually. So, like, it's a mad world.
It's a different kind of world, certainly. So picking up on the point that you made about the very strong influence that your father had in your career path.
Yeah.
In the book, you also speak about the other male the characters, influences, as it were, in your journey. And what I found really interesting is that these were men who were doing it at a time where the world wasn't speaking about gender equality as loudly as they are doing right now. So perhaps forward thinkers, as it were, for their time, but nonetheless, what contribution did their influence have on the kind of leader that you have become today? Yeah.
So with my dad, I think it was quite interesting because my dad was quite, I think the best way to say is conservative in terms of his view on women. And so I think in his mind, he wanted to make sure that we could look after ourselves well if we couldn't meet husbands who could look after us better. And so, but I'm very thankful that he taught us to be able to look after ourselves. So my dad had a huge impact on my life, and that was foundational alongside all the other people that also had an impact. The next person would be a man called Andrew Capitman, whom I met in the States when I was working in New York. And he was this big, much older Jewish man whom I was very afraid of. And I just literally just bumped into him, and he'd asked me to do something for him. And somehow that developed into a relationship. And then there were others as well. But the one thing that I'll mention with respect to Andrew was that it taught me that, just seeing a person on the outside doesn't tell you who they really are, and that you really need to learn to understand who that person is. And it was really only once I'd started working closely with him, and he invited me to his home, like on weekends, and I'd met his family, that I got to see who he really was, And then the next man that I met, and there was a number, I then met also, when I was back here in South Africa, our president. I was going to make you say you didn't.
Because you shouldn't be shy. And of course, at the time, he wasn't president.
No, he wasn't.
A respected businessman also in his own regard.
Absolutely. So actually, another man who was working for him, Rowan Smith, had approached me to come and work with them at Shanduka. It was then called MCI, Millennium Consolidated Investments. And I was leaving the DBSA, and I wasn't sure because I was looking at joining another bank. I'd actually accepted the offer. And so I decided, no, I can't, I've got to, go this way. And he said, look, just hang on a second. I've got our partner, our chairman here with us. And then he handed the phone over to him. And then he said, why don't we meet? I've just heard so much about you from Rowan. Sure. Let's just meet. And so we met. And in the conversation, we said absolutely nothing about the job that Rowan had been speaking to me about. And it was incredible. Just in that time of speaking to him, it made me decide that I wanted to work with him. Yeah. And it was just seeing the person that he was, the fact that he would take the time to get to know me. He was asking me questions about, my family, where I'd grown up, trying to get to know who I was. And I just loved the authenticity of that. And I thought, I would love to work for this man. And so and when I walked out of there, I remember calling Rowan and saying, Rowan, I'm coming to work for you guys. I need to fix something with the other organization whose offer I've accepted. But so I've had that great fortune of being able to meet incredible men. And there are many others as well. There's Clive Ferreira, there's many others who've had a huge impact on my career, but also on my life. And then, of course, now, working with Koos Becker, who's just unbelievable. And of course, our group CEO, Fabrizio Bloisi. So I've had the good fortune of working with hugely empowering, supportive men who are looking to just, create the best for the organization and for, the careers of the professionals within the organization. So it's been wonderful.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to listen to, and there's so many lessons there about not judging a book by its cover in leadership, and also about, you were talking about how your life and a decision had been made for you to go the one way, but just that agility to say when the winds change and when there's a certain gut feel that he says go in this direction, being bold enough, even if it was just a phone call by a man who asked you about your family that made you decide on the other path. But talking about family, let's have a better understanding of where you ladies come from. And Leila, you are interesting. You did not grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth, or being handed a silver spoon in your mouth. You paid your way through school. Really, really tough thing to do for anyone who's had one job in varsity. You had more. So talk to us about that and the juggling and the balancing act that you had to do. Affording the education, ensuring that you actually passed, and what that has framed you to become.
Fifi, I really firmly, personally believe that the leaders that we are today are a function of the stories and the experiences that we have largely when we grow up, and then in that intervening period between sort of entering the world of work and perhaps becoming successful or accomplished for those people who manage or are fortunate enough to get the right opportunities. And I do come from humble beginnings, and there's a Tswana view of Sariti and Moriti. Now, Moriti is the shadow that a tree casts or that I cast, and your Sariti is your soulful, your spiritual and your leadership component, or your personal aura that you leave. And that often comes when two people come together and one person influences your life as the people that have influenced Phuthi's life, and they contribute to you. You are never the same after that. And I experienced that in many periods through my life. So my stepfather adopted me, and I ran a little business on the side when I was small, became very resourceful because we were many children. I am one of 10. Wow. And I didn't grow up with all of my siblings, but I grew up with many of them. And so money was tight, and I had to pay my way through university, and the people that I learned from along the way have really paved the way of who I am today. And I've had, as Phuthi had explained, a couple of tragedies that were very difficult to come to terms with, but ultimately I was much stronger for them. Two of the turning points in my spiritual DNA were when I lost my a very close family member at a very young age, who was like a son to me. And then when I very tragically lost my stepmother, who died of multiple sclerosis. And that was a very tragic thing to see. And it was at those two, they happened not far apart from each other. And it was at those 2 points of inflection that I decided that we all have 15 to 17,000 breaths a day. We all have the same sort of opportunities. Although we come from different backgrounds, we have different DNA, we have different abilities, but we all have the ability to shape and design our future. And particularly if you've come from a humble beginning. And so the lessons that I took from so many of those experiences, and particularly my value system, is driven very much from my grandmother and my mother, who were incredibly hardworking and also very intellectually curious. And they forged me to be the first person in my direct family to become educated beyond high school. And that probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't have these 3 jobs that I was juggling in my first year, well, throughout. And I had one person who was my pastor, who stepped in my 3rd year, because I was really working very hard, and said, I'll help you out. And he paid 1/3 of my fees. And that really had such a profound impact. And it was 20 years later, when I was appointed to a board, that I went back to him and I repaid him that money in interest. And it was, he was at that point where he was retiring, and it was a very raw emotional interaction, because I'd acknowledged the platform that he had given to me. And it's something that I've always tried to remember and try to be grounded in, regardless of the boardrooms that you sit around and the important people that you might meet. Just never forget your roots, and never forget to pay it forward. And so it's those sorts of things that have also inspired me to move on to external interests and to challenge myself in ways outside of the work, the linear sort of analytical work environment.
Sure. I mean, we touched on this before. I imagine that you are making reference to you as a mountain climber all over the world. Although I do know that you're also a cycler, and this is something that you also do in I suppose not necessarily as charity, but also in your passion to pay it forward, as it were.
Yes, so I spoke briefly about the elements outside of the work environment. And for me, what's really important is that people expand their horizons constantly. And, you know, I spoke to a women's group a while ago, and I was just talking about the fact that mountains don't ask what your background is. They don't ask what qualifications you have. They really ask, will you climb? And that is relevant not only in the natural environment where you're surrounded by the magnificence of these beautiful mountains, but it's relevant in the boardroom table, around in the sand pit, when you're playing as a young child, as I see my granddaughter experiencing now. It's relevant in every aspect of life. And with cycling too, I've taken, I support the Change Your Life charity, which is designed, it's many CEOs and executives who come together to change people's lives. And it's really to take violence off the street. It was born out of a tragic loss, one of our JSE staff members who lost his life through violent crime. And people before me chose to do something about that. And so we cycle to make a difference. And the money that gets raised currently gets used for the children in the Valley of 1,000 Hills. And it's genuinely not only changed those individuals' lives, but it's had a community impact as those kids become more financially independent and uplift their entire communities. And this, it really comes back to my own personal situation and the importance of building on your lifelong lessons and those kairos moments, those moments that last forever, and making sure that you pay it forward and you have a compounding effect through other people's lives.
Sure. No, that's it's certainly beautiful and inspiring as well. And it's a little difficult for me to ask this question because sometimes people think that as journalists there are certain questions that are not difficult, but this is difficult because I want to take us down the path of loss, Phuthi, with you, just given the fact that you speak so much about it in your chapter, and perhaps it's really molded the kind of leader that you've become. Because you spoke about the early loss of your mother, that you were raised by a single father. It also made you have to step up as the older sister.
Yeah.
You spoke about the loss of your father, that it comes across as though it took you by surprise because you had a stroke?
Yeah.
You fell ill, and you were even losing your memory at one point. It was really tough for you. And then we are all aware of the recent loss of your husband. That also hit you. So it's quite a lot of loss for one person to be dealing with, perhaps a lot more than most encounter. I mean, I'm blessed to say that I've got both my parents at the age of 39. But there must have been positive takeaways then for you throughout that trauma. And perhaps maybe you can help us understand what they were and what you've learned from that trauma.
Yeah. I think what I've learned from trauma is the importance of holding on to good memories. And I'm thankful, for instance, with my father. With my mother, there wasn't much time for many good memories, but we had amazing memories. But with my father, it really taught me the importance of that, and I'm glad that the last thing that he did in his life was something that he wanted to do. He wasn't supposed to do it. He wanted to go and visit his friends in the States, and he was sick. And my sister and I just decided, okay, let's just make him go. And so he went with my sister. But so having those good memories is something that's very, very good. I think being able to move forward is another thing that's very important. And so that's why after my husband passed away, I immediately made the decision that I wanted to move from Johannesburg. Because in Johannesburg, there are so many restaurants, it's just too many memories for me. Yeah, too many triggers. And so I moved to Cape Town, and it has been an absolute blessing because I feel as if I'm starting over. And so on the 1st of September, it will be a year. And so it really has been a blessing because I have really been able to take out the time and deal and face it, because that's the important thing, is to really face that this has happened. And now you're carving a new life, and so it has been a process of those learnings, and I'm grateful for that. I've created new relationships. So one of the things that I love to do, listening to Leila talking about, the importance of supporting and uplifting, I've met other children. So one of the things that I love to do is education of children. It's something that I've always been passionate about, because I've seen the impact that it can have. I've seen it in my own life. I saw it in my father's life, in my sister's life, and so I've always focused on education of children. So right now I have 9 children whom I'm putting through, either through primary school, high school, or university, and 2 of them I met when I moved to Cape Town.
Listen, are they?
So I was taking the one young lady to her school to get her registered, and then she came with a cousin who had been accepted into med school, but didn't have the funding, so I took her on as well. Sure. But just amazing young people. I feel like young kids are even much more intelligent than certainly I was at their age, and so that is something that has just been wonderful. So sometimes when you're going through periods of loss, being able to feed into areas of growth of life, it also just has such a huge impact on you.
And if I can just say, having watched this journey that Phuthi's gone through, I've been incredibly inspired by the strength and the determination with which you've led your life through particularly the most recent loss that you've experienced, and what an incredibly powerful and positive impact you've had reflecting on others that you might not realize. And it really uplifts and strengthens people around you. And so we are very fortunate to have that, especially as females.
And Leila has been so supportive. She's just been incredible. And it means so much. Because sometimes I think when we walk around in our careers, it's you almost think people are blind to it, but she would always, she would send a text message. She would, she's just, Thank you for being you, Leila. Thank you. No, honestly.
I love the sisterhood. I love it because it also dispels a notion out there that the reason why a woman not as far as they should be, or there's not more a woman on boards and all of that, is that women don't support each other. They pull each other down. And I would like to think that it's certain kind of people. It's not necessarily about a gender, but I love that you guys have just showed that it's captured on camera, the sisterhood that does exist. Look, I'm mindful of time and the other few topics that I want to touch base with you guys on as well. And it is this topic on having it all, because you guys speak very passionately about young people that you're supporting in their rise. And so young women are looking at you and thinking, wow, okay, so if I want to be Phuthi and if I want to be Leila, that means, okay, can I get married? No, marriage probably won't work for me. Oh, can children be a part of the equation? Maybe not. What inspired me about your journey, Leila, is that you took a break to go do the family stuff. And then you came back and you did the big boss stuff. And sometimes there's a view out there that if you do take that break, or if there is that gap, it will mess up on your climb higher. Was that your experience?
Fifi, it was the most difficult decision to take. Some people build their careers, and then when they're in a position of leadership, they take time off, and sometimes that's good because they have more flexibility. I chose to have children much younger, and I had 2 children and took the very unorthodox decision to take off for almost 5 years to really pour myself into my children. And while I was at home, when they were at kindergarten, I would study, and often late into the night, because you end up looking after the children and everyone else's children in the afternoon, and only when they go to bed. And I had a bit of a crisis of confidence when I got to 30, and I realized I'm now going to re-enter the world of work, and 5 years has passed and technology has changed. And it was a confronting and difficult experience. And I think every woman experiences that, whether they spend 5 months or 5 years at home. Having been out of the work environment, you come back and you doubt yourself, you have less confidence in your ability, and it takes a degree of maturity and an internal locus of control. And I thought at the time I'd made a tremendous mistake because all of my peers were ahead of me, and I had to get into a work environment where people were much younger than me. I was working in teams with youngsters, and ultimately water finds its course. And it comes back to these basic values: diligence, working hard, being authentic, and really making a transparent and authentic contribution. And if you've got those values, that time period out, I've never forgotten it. And my children have actually. My son came to me and said a while ago. He's now 30, and he said, Mom, I didn't realize that other children didn't really their parents didn't read to them like you did, and they didn't have the same relationship that I do with them. And I've worked incredibly long hours, and yet they've supported me through that because I had the foundation. And so I don't regret that for one moment, but you only realize the value of that when you get older and your value system adjusts.
Yes, and I like that you even bring some lessons that you learned from motherhood, and you talk about how it has nurtured and shaped you in terms of that nurturing and the understanding that you perhaps wouldn't have learnt if you had another role.
And those basic values were crucial through the leadership period during the COVID crisis, where there was this reversion back to basic values and a focus on empathy and really genuine people-centered leadership. This is not sort of MBA tokenism. It's genuine care for the people and the growth of those leaders that you're nurturing for the next generation.
Yeah, and but even if you choose a different path, and it's everyone's prerogative. Phuthi, you highlight a statistic. The fact that we are 51% as women, the demographic here in South Africa. Yet you look at what is happening at a boardroom, a middle management level, and it's not represented. That demographic is not represented. So you stay, you work your D off to make sure that you can improve your prospects to get to that, and it doesn't happen for as many of us as it should. In your view, what needs to change?
Sure, it really is a difficult one in terms of what needs to change.
Is it policy?
I think.
Is it attitude?
I think what needs to happen is a change in the approach and the view around women in boardrooms and organizations. I think we need to have environments where women can go on maternity leave and come back and still be able to continue with what they do, because typically what you find is that people will go away, they come back, and then the people that they were on par with have now moved on. And I think that we lose so much talent by not ensuring that we're able to retain women, because we need to have families, and we do also need to have women playing their role in their different careers, whether it's medicine or corporate or whatever area it is. But for that to happen, it does require a change on boardrooms, on corporate teams and all of that. And I'm thankful that when I look at the boards and corporate teams that are represented right here, these three, certainly I know that these are boards which are very supportive of women. These are organizations that are very supportive of women and are led by people who support women as well. And so, we need a lot more of that, because I think we still have a lot of patriarchal approach towards the role of women in organizations. And so I think that's what I would say, yeah.
You also give Casey a really nice quote in terms of everything that you have achieved so far. How you're not done yet. There's still a lot more that's in the pipeline. And I suppose as we wrap things up, what would you like to be remembered for as leaders? Leila, we have seen some of the innovations that you have brought into the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We've seen the double-clicking that you have done on sustainability by way of a lot of the products that are now available on the exchange. But when you reflect on the very big concept of legacy, what would you like to be remembered for?
And Fifi, many people will say, well, what have you delivered? And it would be great to say, well, I think we should be remembered for diversifying the stock exchange and transforming the financial position, for introducing the private placements in the SME environment or the carbon market, for advocating on the UN Global Compact or for supporting international positioning of emerging markets and of the African continent. I'm doing a lot of work in trying to get the country re-rated back to where we should be, because I believe that the rating is biased and not necessarily reflective of the transformation that we have started to see. But ultimately, it's less about the actual outputs. It's less about profitability, share price. And it comes back to Maya Angelou's quote, it's not about what you did or what you said, it's about how you made people feel. And the legacy that I would like to leave is that I gave, particularly females, but any young budding talent, an opportunity in one small incremental way, an opportunity to grow and to develop and to become a powerful leader. And I look back over my career and I can see those small elements that shaped my growth and my progress and my development. And many times, many of them are men leaders, largely because those were the leaders of the day. Also, many females along the way. And often they wouldn't have realized the profound impact that they had on me. And it comes back to those kairos moments. That's those moments that last forever, or those moments that really matter. And I want to know that I've done everything in my power to grow and develop the incredible executive team that I have around me. And that would be enough for me.
You know, I know you speak about the outcomes of all your efforts and the actions that you have taken. They have not gone without being noticed, and they have not gone without the various acknowledgements and the accolades. I mean, I can't even begin to list the accolades that you all have, because there's just too many and we won't have enough time. But Phuthi, similar question then to you in terms of what you want to be remembered for, and I suppose you dovetail that with ultimately what successful leadership looks like for you.
Yeah. I think it really very much links to what Leila was just saying. It is very much, for me, about providing access to education to as many young people as possible, because I believe that when young people have access to education, whether it's formal education or also, support with respect to mentoring and sponsorship, that you're able to push them onto the next level, get them to the next level. And what I hope is that through the work that I'm doing, whether it's in my personal capacity or it's also through the Cyril Ramaphosa Foundation, or it's through the work that we're doing through Naspers Labs, that all that work, all those young people, we can see a generation of young people who are able to stand up and do even more for many other young people, because we live in a youthful, continent. And so if we are to support the many young people that we have on this continent, that is what will make our lives as older people a lot better, and also this continent a lot better for many generations to come.
But if there was, as we just begin to wrap things up, there's a lot of the young women who are watching this, no doubt. There's a lot of middle-aged women who are watching this, no doubt, young men and middle-aged men. If there's one or two really critical traits in what makes a successful leader that you're able to impart or share with them, in turn, one can flip the question many ways. It's either you're writing to your younger selves or you're actually speaking to these younger people that are looking at you right now. What would it be?
For me, it would probably be two things. I think leading with purpose is important. I think leading and knowing the bigger thing that you're wanting to achieve is important. It gives you stay in power, and it also gives you clarity around what's right and wrong for you and what you need to be and your alignment with the organization. So this kind of purpose-led leadership, I believe a lot in. Leading with values is important. In fact, when I think about where we are at today, I think we've got a values crisis globally.
Sure.
And I think it's important to be clear around the values that are the correct ones for you and your organization, and that alignment, and to hold firm. And then I think leading authentically. I remember, if I think about my career, I remember the number of instances I'd have to morph and adjust for the circumstances and the time and so on. And coming into the role as CEO was the first time where I was like, me, right? And this authenticity piece, I think, is important. And leading really just authentically as you, and pulling from the strong parts of you is important, and not worrying about the judgment of it. And I think that if you just do that, people, certainly I, value knowing that, Phuthi, this is who you are. Whether you're with me or whether you're with Fifi, I know the consistency of who you are. I can work with that. Whether I like you or not is irrelevant, but I know what I'm working with. And so this authenticity piece for me is important. We need to be able to come into the workplace and be us authentically.
Absolutely. So purpose, value, and authenticity. And I think that that will resonate quite strongly amongst most people who understand what makes a good leader and who aspire to be a good leader. Ladies, it has been a absolutely fantastic time being with you today on this podcast, learning from you. And I no doubt feel that the viewers and the audience who are watching this feel the same as well. I can tell you it's an absolutely fabulous book, and it has so many other stories of women leaders on the stock exchange, Miss Val Nigas of Spur, as well as the CEO of Kumba Iron Ore, Miss Mpumi Zikalala, as well as outside in other areas of commerce and business. There's the former public protector of South Africa, Ms. Thuli Madonsela, as well as the founder of Africa Fashion International, Ms. Precious Moloi Motsepe. So many stories that we can learn from by way of leadership. It is the Architects of Influence, Women in Leadership, as Leila has said, written by Casey Rotok. But that is all we have time for today, and we thank you so much for tuning in, and hope that you are inspired by the stories that you heard. And I know that you'll once again be tuned into the next episode of the JSE Investor Avenue podcast. From myself, Fifi Peters, it's been a jam being with you, but it's bye for now.